Like I said, this week in music, we have Jack White v. Trump. The battle ensues. Let the games begin, as it were. We also this week have Unto Others very unceremoniously getting dropped from the tour they were on. And we have a lot to talk about with Linkin Park. So the music section, as per usual, is going to be rather large. Welcome, nerds, to this week's edition of the Music News. This is just a section, one section of six, count them, six other sections that we do over on the main channel in a show I like to call Week in Nerddom, where we talk about all of the nerdy things. You can find a link to that show down in the description or at the end of this video. Now let's talk about new music, touring information, and other generally interesting things to do with the music news. You thought I was going to say generally nerdy, didn't you? Okay, so we're about to get super verbose. Music section, follow-ups and corrections. This one's going to be kind of peppered throughout because there's more than just the one piece about Linkin Park, but we gotta address the Linkin Park situation. I think actually I'll roll a fair amount of this up in the follow-ups and corrections, but either way, Linkin Park. So last week, I'm gonna apologize off of the top for this one because I didn't actually get last week's episode posted until after the Linkin Park reveal for whatever the hell they were going to do. Well, now we know exactly what they were going to do. Theoretically, I guess, could have recorded an addendum to that, so my apologies, but yeah, just not part of the way I do the process, and, you know, set whatever. It's an apology either way. So we could have talked about this last week, and we didn't. So we're talking about it now. So the big reveal, obviously, the rumor was true. I guess this is kind of a confirmation for a rumor that from the rumor mill, but the rumor was true. They were, in fact, replacing Chester with a female vocalist. Not exactly the end of the world. It kind of is what it is, as long as, you know, she's a good vocalist. Those are some giant shoes to fill. So let's talk about this female vocalist. Her name is in the notes. It is Emily Armstrong. There's actually two other new members on stage, kind of. They had a different guitar player than their regular guitar player, but he is a temporary fill-in from the sounds of things. And if you go by the music video that they just released, that's their normal guitar player in the music video, and the temporary guy just did the live reveal for some reason and is also doing the tour that they're about to go out on, but we'll get to that in the tour section. And then they have a new drummer altogether. The new drummer's name is Colin Brittan. He also is a producer, so interested to hear how or if the production changes on this record from the last record. I mean, obviously, it's been a little bit of time since we got new music from Linkin Park, so the techniques and things are going to be different, but it'll just be interesting to see how that has changed. So, all right, so Emily Armstrong, let's talk about this. She is from a band previously called Kill Sarah, if I'm remembering that correctly, because that is not in the notes. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Kill Sarah. And if you haven't listened to them, they're not bad. They're definitely not overly aggressive. Like, they're borderline like indie, kind of like an indie punk thing, like indie pop, indie rock meets really safe version of punk rock, but not bubblegum punk. Yeah, either way, they're worth a listen. So go check them out. Emily Armstrong is apparently a Scientologist, and that was a big situation for a number of reasons, not the least of which the whole Danny Masterson thing. When Danny Masterson was in court, she showed up to one of, if not the first court date for Masterson as support for him. And so Cedric from the Mars Volta and At the Drive-In, the vocalist from those two bands, his wife is one of the victims of the Danny Masterson situation. And so he is not a silent person about it. He also is a former Scientologist, as is his wife. So another thing that he's not very silent about. And so when the announcement was made, it was brought to the world's attention that this was a thing that Emily's past. So she had to address this. And then also Chester's son has recently come out since the apology from Emily has come out and said, there's a lot of really like overblown, like very emotional reactions. So I don't want to like diminish the way these people feel, because they are very emotional situations, and for good reason. But Chester Bennington's son has come out against this addition to the band. Not exactly because it's a replacement for his father, because like, I'm sure he knows, just like the rest of the actual band knows, that Chester would not want them to stop making music because he can no longer participate in the making of said music. I think that the issue is more, even though some of the vocabulary he uses seems to imply that you're replacing my father and that's the bad thing. No, I think more his intent for coming out against Emily is her history with Danny Masterson and with the Church of Scientology, and with supporting somebody who is convicted at this point. I shouldn't just say accused, a convicted and is doing many years in prison rapist. And because Chester had a past where that was done to him as well. And this is not secrets that aren't known by basically the masses. So yeah, it was just a really hairy situation, and that's all just the periphery. That has nothing to do with, we're not even talking about the performance yet, because that's also part of the big reveal, is they had effectively a performance. They did a live performance while revealing Emily. So we'll talk about that in just a moment as well. But so Emily has come out and said, I do not support this person. I do not support aggressors. I can't remember the exact vocabulary that she used, but she stated it in no uncertain terms. I do not support victimizers. I think the victims are the ones who need to be upheld and glorified effectively, that they need to be the ones who are focused on, and the victimizer should be sentenced and put in a hole to rot, effectively. I'm getting much more colorful, I'm sure, but that's kind of the gist of it. So she had to come out and make that statement, because like, how can you have a public persona in one of the biggest bands in the world without distancing yourself from the stupid things you did years ago? Makes perfect sense. Also, if you know anything about the Scientology situation, I'm not going to call it a religion because I really can't buy into that terminology for that group of people, but and that's a whole different conversation for another time, probably never a video on this channel. Either way, if you know anything about the way Scientology deals with its members, then you know that a large part of the indoctrination, a large part of bringing people in, is kind of brainwashing them. And part of participating in that organization is like forced participation in a number of things, and a number of rather unsavory things, not the least of which is like intimidation of former members, intimidation of people who are speaking out against the organization, like very vehement intimidate. Like, these people are relentless. There are a number of documentaries. I believe there's one on Netflix that I watched not too long ago, the Leah Remini, I'm pretty sure, documentary about her journey leaving Scientology and all of the things surrounded around that. And then there's another one, I think, also on Netflix that's not even a celebrity who left the organization, just a regular person, and the way they were treated and how they're similar to the high profile members and such. It's just really crazy. So her participation in that, I'm not trying to make her into a victim per se, but honestly, to a certain degree, I view most of the people who are part of the Scientology organization as victims to a certain degree, just because they're looking for a place to belong, and then they get brainwashed into thinking this is the way of things, and it's just a really messed up situation all over. So yes, her support for Danny Masterson was disgusting, and it's a good thing that she has distanced herself from it. I think that is sufficient I think in any reasonable light. Anyone who's not close to the situation, much like Chester's son, should accept, I think, her current place in life is not the same as it was when she was effectively forced to support Danny Masterson. So that I think is where we should leave that part, because everyone who has a colorful past, we'll say, and has learned from it and is distancing themselves from the negative elements of it, should be allowed that grace. That is, again, we're going to leave that part. So let's get into the performance, shall we? Mike Shinoda has come out recently since this performance and said that Emily is not trying to do a Chester Bennington impersonation. She is not up on stage trying to sound just like Chester. I think there is a little bit of truth to that and a little bit of smoke and mirrors there as well. Because yes, there are, if you watch that live performance, which I would absolutely recommend, Linkin Park live is very entertaining. Those guys know how to put on a show. Even if like half of the band are not actual member or not original members or whatever, still, it's a really entertaining show. If you like live music, that is a pretty good representation of Linkin Park live. I've seen them twice, I believe, in actual live, not on live video, but very interesting situation. I really, really dig them live. And so if you listen to her performance, there are a number of spots where she very clearly is pitching her voice down. You can hear her speak, you hear her natural singing voice, her natural alto, and then you hear her try and pitch down. Granted, yes, I mean, like, you have to be able to move your vocal range a little bit, or the range for the individual song, in order to fit what was already written, because a lot of this music is previously written. Most of this music is previously written. We'll get to the new song into the new music and videos section, but yeah, so she tries to pitch down in certain respects to fit the notes of Chester. And when she does that, you can see like concentration come across her face, and she is very clearly trying to resemble Chester. Maybe it's not an impersonation, but the resemblance is an attempted resemblance at least. So there's that. And then there's, like I said, there's the sections where she kind of just does her own thing. And again, after having listened to her first band, Kill Sarah, you can hear the similarities of where her voice comes from in that band and where her voice is now with Linkin Park. There's a lot of similarities there. So you can see kind of what she naturally does as a vocalist. And that's pretty cool. Like, and even those parts where she's kind of pitching down to match Chester's delivery, those work. It's not terrible, it's not great, and there's a lot of stuff going against her at that point. This is our first time on stage with these guys in front of the literal world. Yes, they were in LA for the performance, but they were live streaming on the biggest video platform in the world for the world to see. So she was ostensibly performing for the entirety of the world for this. So that's gonna do something to your nerves. I don't care how big her previous band was. It was not Linkin Park big, and that's a bit of a change. So I can chalk up a fair amount of that performance where it kind of sounded a little weird or off or whatever to nerves. There are a couple of issues though. I can't remember exactly. I should have been taking notes, but I had to rewatch it because I was at work when it originally aired. And then when I got home, I was working on the edit. So I was basically watching it in bed. So I wasn't taking notes while I was watching it. I was just enjoying the music. So I can specifically remember there were two separate songs where she had, again, Chester was an amazing vocalist. Those are some gigantic shoes to fill when it comes to the expectations placed on this poor girl, going forward in trying to perform these songs as written by Chester Bennington. And there are definitely two spots in there where it was absolutely bad. I was looking at the screen going, I hope that is just because of the nerves, because they were rehearsing this set for at least a week leading up to this, probably more, just because they are professionals and they're all kind of rusty. It's been a little while since any of them have performed on stage, let alone with a new person in the band, a new vocalist no less. So they had to have been rehearsing this for some time, and that couldn't have been missed because those two moments were so glaringly bad. They could not have been something that they just said, oh, you'll hit it on stage. That was probably sections that she was focusing on. And then again, I'm going to chalk a little bit of this up to just nerves and just the situation at hand. But I would be very surprised if they continue to do... If they continue to do those songs, which they probably will because they're big songs. They only did the hits. They didn't do any real deep cuts except for the new song. They didn't really do any deep cuts. It was all the songs we all know by freaking heart. So they probably will continue to do those songs, but I would imagine that she's going to find, and if I can remember to do it while I'm editing this, I'll try and put the song titles up on the screen, but it would require me going back through the entire hour set and finding those two spots. But either way, if they continue to do those two songs, like, she's going to find a different delivery that doesn't sound like Chester, because she was obviously trying to hit those notes that Chester hit with ease, it would seem, and very much missed them. So I don't know. I'm not gonna just crap all over him because it was still entertaining. Like, she did a fine job. It wasn't great. Sadly, I definitely had high expectations that were not met. But again, it's the first time she's been on stage in front of an audience with this band, and it's the first time she's been on stage in front of an audience that is the literal worldwide. So I think some of that can be excused. I still have high expectations. I'm not just going to throw them out because the first performance was bad or questionable or not great. But I think my expectations are brought down just a little bit after seeing that first performance. All right, so that's our follow-up from the music section. I promise you I'm going to minimize the verbosity going forward because that was a lot, I understand, but we had to talk about it. So moving from the follow-ups and corrections, let's talk about the new music because we do have quite a bit of new music. A couple of bands that I think I have said previously that we're not going to talk about anymore are still in here. And yeah, just because these new tracks from them are dope. So let's get into it. First one is one of those two bands, and that is Spiritbox. They have dropped a new song called Soft Spine, and this actually, the other song's a Ginger song, and they kind of have a weird thing in common in that the lyrics are kind of minimalist, which super duper works when you're writing such aggressive music. And this, again, I think Spiritbox really, really shines when they really get into the aggressive side of things. I think the fact that they have the more melodic and mellow side is one of the elements that kind of gives them their own spot in the scene, right? But like, I think that they are one of the better heavy bands on this side of stuff too. And that's kind of the thing that makes them really difficult to pigeonhole into a subgenre. Yes, they're metal, but like, are they deathcore? Are they metalcore? Are they whatever the hell Evanescence is? Like, you can't really kind of put them into one of those spots because they do all of that stuff. And they legit do all of that stuff well. I just think they do the really heavy stuff the best. Oh, this song is so great. I'm gonna stop gushing. Let's move on. That is an absolute recommend. Our next song this week comes from a band from my childhood, and that is Filter. Filter, they've put out a new record within the last year. This comes from that. The name of the song is Burn Out the Sun. The evolution of Filter is super interesting because they all met while working for Trent Reznor. And so the first record is very much like an industrial kind of radio rock, friendly industrial, if you will. They have kind of since dropped the industrial side of things and they're just leaning into that radio rock. But I'm totally here for it because these guys can write a hell of a song. And it's not even that it's like an earworm, that it just sits in your brain and goes over I mean, maybe Hey Man, Nice Shot or Picture. You take a that will sit in your head for days. But by and large, like just their music in general doesn't do that. It's not annoying. It's just good. So I wish more radio rock sounded like this. And on that note, we're gonna definitely recommend you go listen to the new Filter track, Burn Out the Sun. Our next one comes from a band called Shallow Rising. This is the most recent outing from Chris Adler, the former drummer of Lamb of God. And oh boy, it's definitely different than Lamb of God. Also, I'll give it this, it's better than the last project he was attached to, because that one was like borderline, what's his name? David Silveria's new band levels of not good. But he did that song with Michelangelo Badio, and he's definitely one of the best drummers in metal music. It's just, I don't know why he felt like he was getting pigeonholed in Lamb of God when he's basically been doing radio rock ever since. And that's kind of what this is too. There's really no edge to this. There's really no show of force. Not that every song has to be like at the peak of your abilities, but this is barely like for a marathon runner, this is a jog around the block. This is not anything to write home about. It's not bad, but it's like, you are Chris freaking Adler. You should be in one of the biggest bands in the world. You formerly were in one of the biggest bands in the world, and now you're doing this. It seems like you're playing it safe, bud. I will say, go check out this track just so you understand where I'm coming from. Obviously, if you have a different opinion, by all means, let's have that conversation down in the comment section or over in the shout out show. Doesn't matter to me, but it's kind of a very weak recommend as far as this goes, and really just for anthropologic reasons. From there, we got another one from Opeth. Also, I guess a little bit of a correction from the last time we talked about Opeth. I said it was S1 because that was the way it was presented on my radio when I first heard it, and I didn't hear the actual song title until long after I had recorded the episode. So it's not S1. That symbol that looks like two S's kind of attached at the top and bottom, is a paragraph symbol in legal terms and not in writing terms. The writing version of a paragraph is a P with an extra line standing it up. So that's why I was like, I know what that is, but I can't really place it. Paragraph. Paragraph 1 was the first one. So the new Opeth is paragraph 3. And this record is just going to be amazing. This song, though, not as heavy as paragraph 1. Paragraph 3 definitely does not do much with the guttural tone from Mikael Åkerfeldt. But still, just Opeth, as much as they were doing that throwback kind of prog sound up until, I guess, kind of the last record was where they started to ditch it again and go back to their heavier roots, this record is just completely blowing it off while still kind of tagging a little bit behind. It's gonna be amazing. Again, gushing. Let's just move on. That's absolutely a recommend. Go check out paragraph 3. Our next one comes from, this one was really super interesting, actually. So, I'm not gonna be able to say this band's name very well, so I apologize. I'm also not gonna be able to say the name of the song very well because it's in like an ancient language, kind of like Heilung does. A lot of this stuff is actually going to be very, very similar to Heilung. We've talked previously about a band that did a very Heilung-esque thing called Nightland, and they did that cover of Wait and Bleed that was strange but mesmerizing all at the same time. This band is Vigunder. The name of the song is Gro Galder, and they're another Heilung clone, but I think this one is more worthy of that title. I think Nightland was fine. Like they didn't do anything poorly. They didn't do anything like bad. They just didn't do it nearly as well as Heilung. Whereas this one, while there are strong similarities to Hailung, there's also an element of this that sets it apart from what Hailung does. It's only one vocalist, no real focus on the band, though it does sound like there are some more traditional elements to the music making side of things. So yeah, definitely sets itself apart from Hailung, though very obviously just Hailung did a thing that we really dig and we want to do that thing as well, so let's do that. That's kind of where this sits. Definitely recommend, full hearty recommend, go check it out. I'm not going to try and say that band name again or the song name, so you can find the link down in the description to all of these tracks. Our next one comes from Entheos. This is a band we haven't talked about previously. They have one single out on Liquid Metal that gets played with some regular rotation. The new track is called 1,000 Days. I did not fully understand. Like, I definitely knew that they had a female vocalist. I just thought they were splitting duties a little bit. That there were, because I mean, I'm sure to some degree they are, but she definitely takes a lot more of the vocal weight than I was anticipating by just listening with my ears, because she has a wicked scream, a la Tatiana from Ginger or Otep from Otep. She's got a very beefy scream that doesn't sound like it comes from someone in such a diminutive package. So very interesting. Again, the name of the song is 1,000 Doors. This is a lot more blasty than their last track as well. The last track is kind of almost borderline new wave of American heavy metal sounding. This is very much a deathcore, like even borderline like black metal kind of sound. Death metal, I'm sure, thrown in there for good measure. Like, not exactly what I was expecting based off of their previous single, and very much welcome. This is showing a lot of like breadth of abilities and style influences, and super fun to listen to. So full hearty recommend for Entheos's 1,000 Days. Go check that one out. Our next one, all right, here, now we're getting to the Linkin Park piece. So the new Linkin Park track with their new vocalist, Emily Armstrong, the name of the track is The Emptiness Machine. Again, I'm totally here for it. I'm very intrigued by what this new record is going to bring. I don't remember exactly when it's coming out, but there is a release date for it. I'll try and put it on the screen. Recommend. Go check out Emptiness Machine. It's a good track. Our next one, like I said, lots of new music this week, guys. Our next track comes from Memphis Mayfire. All right, the name of the track, let's not get ahead of ourselves. The name of the track is Infection. There was a hot second where I really dug Memphis Mayfire. It was, I think, because they were on tour with Atreyu, so they were really bringing out some of the more heavy things, because at the time, it was before COVID. So at the time, it was still Atreyu as heavy as Atreyu's ever been. So, and then Ice Nine Kills was also on the bill, who are also growing on the heaviness scale. So they kind of were bringing it out. So I was like, I don't know why I never listened to these guys before, because this was a pretty great experience. And then they've put out a couple of singles since then, and now I remember why I've never listened to them extensively, because they just write really bland octane chord nonsense. This is not great. It's recorded very well. The production on it is fantastic, but like, that is kind of a staple for this subgenre of the metals, it's just good quality production. You can't really, that's one of the expectations of the genre. Metalcore, generally speaking, is freaking amazing on the production side of things. Thank you very much, Adam D from Killswitch, for that. But aside from the production level, the performance leaves a lot to be desired. The arrangement of this song is really predictable and bland. There is a moment of hope where they go into a breakdown, but then the breakdown gets cut so short, it's like, well, then why even have that halftime section? They revisit it again at the end of the song, but for even shorter amount of time with other elements stacked on top of it, so it really detracts from it. I don't know, I just feel like these guys are not as good as songwriters as they want to pretend they are. are, and I cannot recommend you check out the new Memphis Mayfire. I don't care if you're a fan. I mean, if you're a big Memphis Mayfire fan, you're gonna love it because it's Memphis Mayfire, and it sounds just like their last few records. But like, if you haven't listened to Memphis Mayfire extensively, this is not the track that's gonna change your mind. Let's say that. Next, we have, like I said, we have another one from a band that I thought we were done talking about because they were, you know what to expect out of Ginger. Well, Ginger has put out a new track from their upcoming record. This is now the second track from that upcoming record. This one's called Rogue, and I apparently spoke too soon because this is not that I ever questioned that they're one of the better, newer bands, but this is just a absolute reaffirmation that they 100% are one of the better, newer bands. The guys behind Tatiana are incredible musicians. Like, there is not you're never expecting where they're going. Even if it, you look at it on paper and it does resemble a traditional song structure, it does not feel like a traditional song structure. So yeah, super excited about new music from Ginger. This new track is a banger. This is another like stupid heavy song from them. Tatiana's really digging into those growls once again. I feel like the last record, it was more of a production issue on her voice that just didn't really accent the really warm bottom end that she has when she gets into those growls. It sounds like they fixed that problem with the new record. So go check out the new song Rogue from Ginger while we anxiously anticipate the new record. From there, we have one final track. This one's a bit of a mishmash of artists involved. So it's Billy Morrison, technically, is who the song is accredited to, but it's featuring Corey Taylor and Steve Vai. The name of the song is Incite the Watch. This is more radio rock, like Corey is wont to do when he's doing basically anything outside of Slipknot. So nothing necessarily wrong with that. He's always going to be one of my favorite lyricists, arguably one of the best lyricists of the last 20 or so years. But not a good track. Like, again, production's fine, performance even is fairly fine, like the actual playing of the notes and singing of the melodies, sure, that's fine. It's just the structure leaves a lot to be desired. Corey's vocal is super predictable at this point. Like, if you've listened to either of the CMFT records, like, this is kind of belongs on one of those as far as his performance is concerned. Even the Steve Vai solo is like, okay, nothing to really write home about here. So, I mean, it's a song that's noteworthy because it is these three artists together, but that's really as far as I can say that this is worth listening to, because it doesn't really set itself apart from any of their previous works. So sure, go listen to it, but you're not going to be super impressed. It's just going to be one of those things that's like, oh, that's on again. All right, tours and festivals. Interesting this week on tours and festivals because we actually have I think it's two separate tour pieces that are anti-tour news. we'll get to that. The first one is kind of making up for what was at one point anti-tour news, and that is Heart, the band Heart from the 80s. You remember them. I believe they might have even started in the 70s. I didn't do my research, or my homework rather, properly on their history, but that's irrelevant to the fact that they're going back out on tour. So they had to, at one point, the beginning of the year, they had to postpone the rest of their Royal Flush tour, which is the tour that they were on, because who was it? Ann Wilson, one of the lady, the vocalist, I believe is Ann. She had to undergo some cancer treatments. She's been stricken with cancer, and she had to go get some treatments, and then she had to recover from those treatments because cancer treatment is really hard on the body. But they have officially rescheduled the rest of the tour that was not finished. It will take place in 2025. Starts February 28th in Las Vegas, runs through April 5th in Quebec, Canada. And if you previously had tickets, much like any of the ones that we've talked about recently that have been canceled or moved or what have you, I'm looking at you, Devil Driver. If you previously had tickets, then those tickets will be honored at the new dates. it was not made clear if you were unable to attend the new date, if you would be able to get a full refund. So definitely check with whoever you bought your tickets through, if it was through their website, Bands in Town, Ticketmaster. I'm sure it was Ticketmaster, but definitely worth a look if you are unable to do it. But the link in the description will take you to the page that will show you exactly where all of the rescheduled dates are, and you can assess from there on your own time. From there, our next one has to do, again, we're back to Linkin Park because they're on tour as of today, as you're watching this. September 11th is the beginning of their new tour, which is crazy. They have been working stupid hard. They recorded a record, which will be out soon. I don't remember exactly, once again, when the record's coming out, but then they're going on tour about a week after the reveal of this new vocalist and new drummer. Like, that's pretty insane. That's kind of how it should have been done too. I think props to the guys in Linkin Park, because you're coming back strong, and that's the way to do it. I think the one kind of issue I have with this is it's only, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dates on this tour. Presumably there will be more in the future because, again, new record. So once the record comes out, I would hope that they're going on a proper, maybe worldwide, maybe just North American tour, what have you. But these 6 dates are already sold out. They went up for early sell to their fan club, and so you had to join the fan club, pay dues to be part of the fan club, and then you got access to potentially getting tickets. Apparently the tickets sold out in literal minutes when they went up. So tickets are no longer available for this tour. So I'm not gonna, there's no link for buying tickets, because I'm not going to link you to third-party sellers, because I think that stuff's ridiculous. Part of the issues that Ticketmaster is having right now is those third-party sellers. Anyway, so the dates are September 11th, 16th, 22nd, 24th, 28th, and then the final one is November 11th. So really interesting. I'm kind of super intrigued by what's going to come out of this, if anything. That's all we have for Linkin Park. Let's move next to Unto Others. I used to play back in the day when I was doing the local scene. There was a band called Do Unto Others that from Iowa, I believe, and so every time I see Unto Others written down, that's what goes through my head. You didn't need to know that. Let's get to the touring news, shall we? Unto Others, we talked about the fact that they're going on tour with WASP a couple of weeks ago. Well, apparently they have been kicked off of the tour with WASP before the tour even starts. So the official reason that was given to them, according to the band on their social media, the official reason that was given to them from WASP was that they did not support, or they did not provide a marketing plan to the overall tour manager for WASP. Which the band says, actually, we submitted a number of marketing plans to you, and you just never responded to us. So what the actual hell is going on? To no response. There has been no word from the WASP camp as to why this has happened, short of the little bit of information that Unto Others was given and then made public after the fact. This is the second band that has left this tour before it's gone out. I honestly can't remember who the other one was, because it wasn't in the notes, because, say it with me, class, I take amazing notes. But yeah, they are the second band. I don't think the first band was kicked off the tour. I think they had to leave the tour shortly after saying that they could do it, and then something happened. And so now Armored Saint is the band that replaced them. But yeah, this whole Unto Others thing is really, really messed up. To the point where, like, they're just like 2 or 3 weeks away from when the tour is supposed to start. So that doesn't give them time to reschedule dates to book their own tour to make up for what their fans are going to be missing. So eventually we will get a tour from Unto Others. They have a record coming out very, very soon, October, I believe. So like, we're looking at some prime touring time for Unto Others, and they're not on tour. And they also had to cancel a festival date that wasn't necessarily related to the WASP tour, but because they were going to be on the WASP tour, that was what was going to take them effectively to the festival. They were going to do the festival and then rejoin WASP a day or two later. That had to be canceled even, because they're now not going to be in that area to attend the festival. Just such a clusterfuck. Yeah, so that's what we've got. As soon as there is an update on this, we will be following up. And then our final piece of touring news also is anti-touring news, and is also from an artist that we don't talk about a bunch on the channel. I think I've done a reaction to some of his stuff before. I'm also a fan. Childish Gambino, aka Donald Glover, is currently on tour and has had to postpone the remainder of the tour. I don't know exactly how many dates were left on this tour, but they're getting postponed, all the rest of them. He's postponing them because he has physical health that he needs to attend to. From the sound of things, the current stage production that they're putting on for this final tour, quote unquote, is very physically demanding, and apparently he's not up to the challenge to do it every night. So he said on his socials that he's going to have to postpone it for, quote unquote, a few weeks, and then they'll reschedule those dates. And again, if you were supposed to go to one of those dates, keep your whatever ticket receipt you have, digital or otherwise, because they will be honoring existing tickets at the rescheduled dates. So that is definitely a thing. Once those rescheduled dates are made known, I'll try and be on top of it. And stuff outside of the heavy metal and hard rock genres is a little bit harder to keep on my radar, but if I can find them when they get rescheduled, we'll talk about it. We'll do the follow-up thing. That's though what we have for tours and festivals this week. So now let's get into regular ass news. I told you, music section's huge this week. Probably bigger than last week, I would venture, because last week was like a 30 or so minute section. This week, I believe we've already gone over that line. And we still have 3 more pieces to talk about. So let's get into regular ass news. Our first one, the big one, is Jack White versus Donald Trump. This is as of, what was yesterday? Yesterday was Monday, as today is Tuesday. So Monday night, the September the 9th, Jack White made it known. I don't know exactly when. I'm sure it's on the piece of information, but I didn't write it down in the notes, and so I'm not looking at the filing right now. But Jack White filed suit against Donald Trump because Donald Trump used Seven Nation Army, and I don't know exactly how it was used. I haven't been able to obtain the court documents just yet, though I will definitely try and get my hands on the full court documents so that we can really get into this. But so this is apparently a different situation than the Foo Fighters previously. So Jack White is suing Donald Trump because they used Seven Nation Army in a video. The issue with that being, when you pay for the rights for a piece of music, there are different sets of rights depending on how you intend on using it. And so the report from the White Stripes camp is that the rights that were paid for were for the live presentation. So it was at a rally or at the RNC, I don't know exactly which. Those were the rights that were paid for. So when they used the video clip from that event in a video to promote Donald Trump's presidency, run for presidency, that's where they crossed a line. So they're suing for misappropriation of music rights because they didn't pay to use it in a video, they paid to use it at a live event. This is really just sounds like more posturing from musicians who don't care for Trump. Jack White said on his social media, on his Instagram, quote, this musician fights fascists. Let's see. I might have put this one in the notes, actually. No, I did not. Either way, something about fighting fashion. This machine fights fascists or something like that. Which is a Woody Guthrie appropriation of a Woody Guthrie quote, this guitar fights fascists. Because Woody Guthrie was actually fighting against fascism and the ideals of fascism, whereas Jack and Meg White, aka the White Stripes, are just trolling somebody they disagree with. There's a pretty big difference there. But this just appears to be posturing. Like, of all of the lawsuits that have been brought against Donald Trump from musicians for a similar purpose, again, Foo Fighters threatened to do this, and then they realized that they were just full of hot air because they paid for the rights to use the thing. And then in 2016, there were a number of other artists, not the least of which being Bruce Springsteen, who tried to do the same thing, and all of the ones who have actually brought suit against the Trump campaign have lost. So that would lend one to believe that, okay, this is probably going to lose as well. It sounds like, though I don't remember the specifics of those previous issues, it sounds like there is a little bit more to go on here because of the different rights that were paid for. So maybe they have a leg to stand on, but really, this just really looks like posturing. This looks like them saying, we don't want Republican types to use our music because we believe in equity and we believe in, you know, socialism and the other things that come with being a progressive these days. So we're not even going to get into that conversation right now, but yeah, just really, really looks like they're trying to virtue signal to all of the people who listen to their music, which you would just want to reach out to them. And some of the people in the comment section of this Instagram post where Jack White laid out that this is what's going on, said very explicitly, like, you realize that conservatives listen to your music too, right? So you're basically alienating approximately half of your fan base by saying silly things like this and by posturing yourself in such a way to make it look like you're trying to be anti-conservative. Which, you know, makes sense. The other interesting part about this is, like, it doesn't even sound like Jack is coming from a place of, like, trying to keep politicians honest. It really sounds like he's just trying to troll. He's just trying to virtue signal for the sake of virtue signaling. Because this stems from when the video in question was posted on X was back in mid to late August, so we're at least 2 weeks ago, and has since been brought down because I'm sure they realized the error in their ways and they went, oh crap, we can't use that clip, at least the audio from that clip, because that's not what we paid for the rights. Presumably that's what happened. But when that happened, Jack White then took to social medias to call Donald Trump a number of names. The first of which being Don Old, O-L-D, as in he's commenting on the age of the, like, you realize your candidate was older up until he was forced to withdraw from the, whatever. So, like, childish name calling is what started the attack from the White Stripes in this instance. And then he perpetuated a very long since debunked talking point from progressive sides, where when Donald Trump called was it service members lazy or slobs or just unsavory names that Donald Trump was supposed to have said, and it has since been debunked. He never said such things about service members in general. I believe he was saying something very specific about a very specific person and not about people who have served this country. Matter of fact, if you go back not too far, just approximately a week or so ago, maybe a little more than a week at this point, where they were honoring the fallen service members in the withdrawal from Afghanistan, he was the only presidential figure there. The other two who are currently in office, who very easily could have attended, were nowhere in sight. Didn't even respond to the request to show up to the family members of these fallen soldiers, who is really the fault of their death is on the heads of both Biden and Harris. But again, we're not going to get into the conversation necessarily. I mean, I'm sure I've already said enough that somebody in the comment sections go, actually, this is why you're wrong. I will have that debate with you, but I'm not going to do it right here on camera because we've already spent way too long on the music section. So, as things come out of this, we will be keeping tabs on Jack White trying to sue Donald Trump for misappropriation. And again, this one might actually have a leg to stand on, though I don't know how much money he's actually going to be forced to pay if he is found to be at fault in this situation, because as soon as it was made known that they had done something they shouldn't, they corrected the issue. So I don't know. We'll see. Let's continue on. Our other piece of regular ass news this week has to do with the Super Bowl. The freaking football season just started. We already know who's going to be playing the halftime show at the Super Bowl. I just thought it was really interesting because Kendrick Lamar is one of the biggest solo art, like he is he's what is it, unsigned, what is the word I'm trying to think of? I'm brain farting exactly the proper terminology for it, but he doesn't have a record label. Kendrick Lamar does everything himself, and well, again, it's been a long time since I've really looked into that, so it could have changed since, but I'm pretty sure that's still a thing. So yeah, just really awesome to see somebody with that kind of work ethic get to the level where you're performing at the freaking Super Bowl. So congratulations to Kendrick Lamar. He's going to be performing at the halftime show at the Super Bowl this year. That is the last piece of regular ass news we're talking about this week in music, which brings us to our suggestion for the week in music. Suggestion for The Crow soundtrack. It is spooky season. We still have that garbage Crow in theaters, kind of. It's going to be streaming very, very soon, but garbage Crow is in the theaters. Show them that you don't want any of that nonsense by listening to the soundtrack for the original 1995 movie. That soundtrack is epic. It is one of the most iconic movie soundtracks, especially on the darker side of music. Like, it is just a phenomenal piece of work in and of itself, even removed from the fact that The Crow, the movie, is also fantastic. This soundtrack, if it was just this collection of songs without being attached to a movie, would still be equally as epic. So please go listen to the Crow soundtrack, the original motion picture soundtrack. That is your suggestion for the week. That brings us to the end of the video, nerds. Thank you very much for joining me for the news. Once again, there is a full and probably much more up-to-date and recent episode of the news, the full-length version, if you will, called The Week in Nerddom over on the main channel, linked down in the description, and probably link popping up somewhere around my face right about now. So click on that, go check that out as well, or if you prefer your news in more truncated pieces, then by all means just stick around here and go check out some of the other stuff we offer on this channel. Thank you very much for joining me. We will see you in the next one. Before we go, always remember, nerds, that if it is generally nerdy, it's probably here.